Hey everybody, thanks for coming today. Back to Bitcoin Builders, our weekly show that we host here with Arch Network. I'm Brian. I don't have Nick here with me, my usual co-host, our CMO, but I'm joined here with Naqib and anyone who wants to join the conversation. We're going to be talking about his collection and ordinals in general. Obviously, NFTs on Bitcoin, that controversial terminology. And from the beginning, I feel like ordinals have been taking this path of a long road, and there's been some resistance, and it's been quite the story to tell. So excited to dig into like what your experience has been, your background, this collection, and everything going on, what your thoughts are and prospects for the future with ordinals and the Bitcoin programmability and design space. So, Naqib, thanks for joining me today. If you want to go ahead and unmute, and I guess we'll just start off. Like, what's your Bitcoin onboarding, background experience?
Well, that for myself, Bitcoin was something that I've known since 2016. But I wasn't really into Bitcoin back then. I bought some Bitcoin, but I wasn't really into Bitcoin. I was more on the Ethereum side of things. Because I met Vitalik in Singapore, way back in 2017 when he was based in Singapore and building Ethereum out from there. And I was building a lot on Ethereum side of things. I was part of one of the biggest early DEXs or AMM protocol, Kyber, and then I went to build bridges for multiple companies. And then only in 2021, I would say that I got more deep into Bitcoin because I want to understand the history of cryptocurrency, the history of blockchain. And that is where I actually really read the Bitcoin white paper. I didn't really read the Bitcoin white paper when in 2016 because I was reading in Ethereum and I feel like Ethereum is the is the future, right? And I do know what Bitcoin was all about back then still, but I never really read the Bitcoin white paper. Only then in 2021 I decided when there was a buzz in the community when Bitcoin was upgraded by the Taproot upgrade. And that's when I like, oh, what's this? The people talking about it. It was all over X, and I decided to really jump in. What's this upgrade all about? And from there, I got bullish on Bitcoin. I was still building a little bit on Ethereum, but I was researching more on Bitcoin, learning more about Bitcoin. Only in 2022, end of 2022, is when I found about Orange Protocol. That really got me deeper into Bitcoin. And in 2023, that's when I built Odza, which was something that meant to be a fun project, and then it became pretty okay size, kind of big. And that's from then on. I've never looked back. Like I pivoted all my ETH, most of my ETH, I would say 80% of my ETH, which is the main asset that I had, into Bitcoin back then, and then never looked back since. So that's kind of the journey that I got into Bitcoin.
Yeah, interesting.
Pretty unconventional,
I
pretty unconventional than most people, but yeah.
Yeah, I feel like, I don't even know what is a conventional on-ramping to crypto. It depends on like when I suppose, and like how early is ultimately the story, but everybody has that, that experience. And I feel like it's a question of like how'd you discover crypto for the first time? When'd you hear about Bitcoin for the first time? And it's always interesting to hear people's I guess like onboarding experience, or their acquisition into crypto, and like what whether it was all chain centered or hearing about crypto in general. My background and like on ramping, I guess, is a little bit similar. I definitely remember hearing about Bitcoin and learning about Bitcoin a little bit, but like yourself, kind of entered into the whole Ethereum landscape. And I'm curious there's obvious differences. We don't need to get into the differences between like Bitcoin and Ethereum and how they work. technically speaking, but I'm kind of curious, like, what was it that like attracted you about Ethereum? Was it the ecosystem? Was it the applications that were being like, like done for the first time? Because I feel like this whole concept of like peer-to-peer cash has evolved over time into, call it whatever you may, like this whole Web3 concept. So I'm curious, like, how did you find your way into Ethereum and in that ecosystem first?
So it was a funny story. In 2016-ish, early 2016, I was waiting to tech, right? I was into big data before that. Then I got into IoT, and then I got into e-coms. And in 2016, I'm not sure if you know a company, one of the biggest tech company in Germany called Rocket Internet. So they opened up a branch in Singapore, and they created a food delivery service called Food Panda. And but I think most of you know Foodora, right, in Europe. So I was into Foodora, and then I emerged into Food Panda, and I was the head of sales operations. I was the sales operations manager basically, and I was the one that doing the polygons for when the drivers and the riders, the delivery guys have to pick up from the restaurant and send to a residential estate or to office, whatever. I'm the one that did all the parameters and stuff like that. And I was trying to find a way. I was Googling, trying to find a way how to automate or make my life easier because I'm a lazy guy. We lazy people always try to find things to make their life easier, right? And then, there was an ad about cryptocurrency, about Litecoin. Was it Litecoin, Bitcoin, and stuff? And I didn't click on it. And then the ad chased me all the way throughout the day. I'm like, "Oh, fuck it, I just click on the ads." And then I was, what's this bullshit? What's this MLM bullshit Ponzi scam thing? And then I just took a screenshot and shared to my friends. And one of my friend, a good friend of mine, he was like, "Bro, that's the future, bro." I'm like, what do you mean by the future? What's this nonsense? I met him, he spoke to me, he shared with me, and I told him that we've been friends for so long, why didn't you even tell me about all this? Because like any Asian back then, the perception of cryptocurrency was a scam, a Ponzi. So he didn't want to share because he did not want to be looked at or be judged at as a guy who wants to sell a Ponzi stuff. Then we decided to kind of talk more about Bitcoin a little bit, and then he said, "Hey, there's an event or there's a meetup, a very small meetup." And then I turned the meet, I came to the meetup, and that's when I saw, there was a very small number of people, but that's where the first time I met Vitalik, and I was astonished when he explained about Ethereum and all that. So I ape in. I think Ethereum was what, 20 cents, 25 cents, 30 cents in 2016, 17, 16 actually. Ape in, and the rest is news. I decided like, holy shit, this is what I want to do. This is cool tech. This is real tech. And I went all in like that. So that's how I got into this whole space fully.
Yeah, and then you said you found your way to Bitcoin and, obviously from the earliest days. I think Casey started publicizing his concept in 2022, sometime around summer, but then obviously the launch of ordinals really kicking off in early 2023 brought this whole new concept, back to Bitcoin. And, you mentioned you created Ordzar. So it seems like this whole idea of participating in this new marketplace using internet capital, internet money, whether it's Bitcoin, Ethereum, has been something that you just decided a long time ago, I'm going to go all in on, and that's kind of been your journey, so to speak, so far.
Yeah, I mean, back then, I know it sounds cringe, but I was actually really in it for the tech, right? Because I said in the early days, I was so into IoT, into big data, and like IoT was something I really like. Like I changed my house to try to be connected to everything. I think that with the light bulbs, bought stuff just to make sure my house is smart, right? Because I was so into IoT. And for blockchain itself, I was really actually in it for tech. I'm still now in it for the tech. I know it sounds really cringe, but I like to build stuff, right? Am a very bad degen trader. I lost a lot of money degening. I think a lot of us do that as well. So for me, building is something that I'm very passionate about. On top of that, it's more of having a legacy. That is something also I'm very passionate about, to have things on chain, to give out to people. Like I wouldn't say I've done really well in the space. I'm not like super rich, like like all the like the cabals or whatever. But for me, this space has done so much and so much for me, changed a lot of in terms financially, in terms of my outlook, my family. So it's all about giving out things back. That's what I've been trying to accomplish as well.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, legacy and giving back and adding to, the place you're participating in. It seems that that's what this Kyogen or Kyojin. How is it pronounced properly?
It's Kyogen.
Kyogen, okay.
Yeah.
So it seems that's the whole, I guess, heart behind it, certainly. Would you mind kind of giving the background story? Was the concept like, how'd you come up with the idea to do the project and
Yeah.
just this from there?
So I have always loved Japanese art from very young. My late grandpa, rest in peace. He loved Japanese art. He loved art in general, especially my aunt. She also loved art. And I didn't find any value in art until I saw, proper art. Right. For me, I know a lot of people will kind of say that, oh, you're weird taste, but I hate Picasso's art. I find it ugly and stupid. I hate certain, all this very old school kind of Rembrandt art concept. Like, it's just weird, right? But Japanese ukiyo-e art, it has a very historical narrative feeling towards it. Like, I vibe with it, right? For me, art is truly subjective. When I see art that I like, I like. If I see art that I don't like, I just say blatantly I don't like. Even if the art costs $100 million, if it's shit, it's shit. Like, I find Mona Lisa weird, I mean, but that's when the love for Japanese art came by, right? And then I've been actually wanting, during the NFT boom, I thought of dropping a fun thing, like this kind of art, but I was so busy building on the DeFi side of things that I didn't really, have the time to actually launch something. And then when Ordinals came through, out on chain, it kind of like, okay, this is what I want to do. This is something that I think this is the best platform for me to launch my collection and to share my passion or my love for Japanese art and give it out to people. But it didn't come true because of, again, for Odza building and all that. Only when recently, when, as you know, Odza itself, under new management, like Snoop, Troy, and all the rest of guys, they've been doing phenomenally awesome, by the way, for Odza V2. The infra, the tech stack has been super good. But so now I have a bit of free time, and I decided that this has been something that I've been wanting to do, and let's do it, right? And my purpose is to just share the kind of art concept. At first, Kyogen is meant to be really, really classical art. And then, but it kind of feels like people might not appreciate like the classical Kyogen concept art. And then that's why I decided to kind of mix it a bit with line art, with modern pop art. And that's how Kyogen was born. I talked to hundreds of artists to support me. I did the first few iterations, and then I shared to this artist, and no one can do it until Trauma. So shout out to him. He gave out a few samples after what I gave to him, and it was phenomenal to me, right? And I like how he made the hand a bit awkward. Like, that's what Japanese art is all about. And I just decided to, what, this is something I want to do, be passionate about. And I told myself this space has granted me a lot of I wouldn't say a lot of wealth, like gave me some money while building and supporting. There's a lot of people, friends that gave alpha, make some flips and whatever. It's time to give back. It's time to give back, give to people, airdrop to people. Sadly, I can only do two to three because of how expensive it is, but it is what it is, right? And that's why I decided to like, okay, this art for you guys. Thanks for supporting me. Thanks for growing the space. Thanks for pushing the space. And let's make oils fun again. So yeah, that's how Kyogen gone in.
Yeah, it's interesting. To me, it just reminds me so much of this whole concept of putting culture on Bitcoin and immortalizing culture and this concept of collecting based on that. We all like have all of these different ordinals that we like to collect. It's kind of outside of that concept of like flipping and the whole like especially when you think about other chains because with Bitcoin ordinals the collections and how they're defined has been entirely different. Obviously you do have the 10K PFP collections, but you have this whole resurgence of a form of expression through the canvas that's just simply putting art on chain. And I feel like the concepts of like one of one art collections that speak differently and are more of like storytelling aspects, especially things that get into like expressions of culture and immortalizing culture like you're talking about on the blockchain, and then sharing that with people who are fellow collectors. So I think that the concept is super cool, and the art style is really striking because it's not necessarily something that you see all the time, and especially I feel like in Web3, though there is obviously there's a lot of anime projects, there's a lot of that we'll say like Eastern art influence, and then streaming culture obviously has this nature to the look of the characters, but this traditional style of character I feel like is starkly like different. Is that something that you really wanted to stay true to, like the whole aspects of the art beyond just because when you look at it, it's like, okay, people can use this as their PFP. It's a PFP collection, but it's not really that, is it?
Yeah. So when I thought of this whole project, this whole art, right? There were specific things that I told, social, that it has to be this way because he wanted to really modernize the ukiyo-e style, and I told him it's fine to modernize, but there are certain aspects that it has to be true to the concept of the art, the culture, like the hands, the eyes, the face, the ratio of how the body to the face to the hands is. And I gave him multiple samples, and he worked on it, and he stayed true to that while modifying and make it a bit more modern. And it turned out exactly what I want. It turned out exactly how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be. It turned out weird at the same time for certain characters. That's the reason why it's done this way. And to be honest, there are other form of Japanese art that I love as well, like Nihongo art. That is something that I am also really passionate about. But ukiyo-e is first, second is Nihongo. Nihongo is under, I think, the Hibiki era kind of concept, and they use water pastel colors and just dab everything to make animals, to make characters, which is beautiful. You guys should take a look at that. So I collect this kind of art, and I mean that I will never stop, pushing art on chain. Like Kyogen is the first, right? And possibly that the Nihongo style art will be the second thing that I want to do. And just give out to people again. Because again, in this to me, having art on chain is something of a personal satisfaction. And it's really when the moment I airdrop Kyogen, I felt amazing. I had good sleep. I know I done well. I don't really care what will happen with everything else. I know I just had a legacy here done under my name, and it's etched in the metadata as well. So yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think that, this project, especially after digging into it more and speaking with you, and like the nature of it kind of lends to this, but it's kind of like confirming more and more this aspect of we asked the question, why do you want to do art on Bitcoin, put your NFTs on Bitcoin? And or I feel like early on, it was like a very, like, tech-centric answer that it's, like, better, it's better to do it on Bitcoin. But there's also this, separate concept of the fine art aspect and it that being connected to the better canvas of Bitcoin, and there's really aspects of, like, how you even can use ordinals, as a way to create art in different ways that are not possible on chains like Ethereum, like the tooling around the creativity side, different aspects of the ordinals protocol. So this like whole concept of using the medium directly as a creation of art and ultimately fine art. And I feel like it has that stark contrast where it's very striking, visually recognizable, and you put it in that class of the style of art that it is. This whole, like, question is answered a little bit separately, and I see we've got, Jayuk up here from our team. I know you've been involved in, assets on Bitcoin and the whole space for quite some time, so I'm curious if you have some thoughts here as well, and also Naqib about that answering that question a little bit separately, like it's not just a trading atmosphere anymore. We've spoken to, Bitcoin Art Society recently. We had them on the show, I think a couple weeks ago, and this whole like collecting fine art on Bitcoin and the value or proposition around it, I think is really coming more into fruition. So I don't know what you guys think about that concept.
Yeah, so I think Bitcoin just having art on Bitcoin, just having basically anything on Bitcoin just makes it more special. That's why, I'm here. Um yeah, so that's what really made me, you know, let's say like whatever was being built on Bitcoin on the first time. Like for example, it was a big FU moment to the people who were saying, Bitcoin is only money, Bitcoin should be this and that. And you know, I think the this space is it's filled up with a lot of people who don't, you know, they didn't never listen to their parents or something like that. That's why we kind of like the vibes here. We just there was like a whole, hostile movement towards ordinals for the last 2 years, but we just stayed. And everyone on Ethereum and Solana, they're like, "Oh, what are these guys doing over there?" Like they seem to be stupid. They seem to be like doing these very uninteresting, obvious, very inefficient things. But I think we just understand how much being on Bitcoin means. And like I've seen a lot of people here for a long time. I've been following many names here for, you know, like the whole history of ordinals. And yeah, I guess we just like it. That's the whole gist of it.
For me, it's more than just liking. I mean, I agree what Morbid said, 100%. Like, but for me, there's something extra to it, right? Because for like after you've been building on different chains, right? On Ethereum, on Solana, I have never built on Solana, but I built on Ethereum, on Avex, I built on Tezos and all this. The aspect of knowing that any point of time this chain can just disappear it frightens me. Do you get what I mean? Like it's just any point of time this foundation can just go poof, you know? And I don't like the idea of if you want to get into an ecosystem like in Ethereum, for example. No, I mean I love Ethereum as well, but I don't like Ethereum in the sense that if you want to get into Ethereum, you have to buy someone's back. You have to buy Ethereum to get to Ethereum. But if to get to Bitcoin, there's a way where you can just mine Bitcoin, and you don't need if you do not want to buy Bitcoin, right? So that's or you can just join the Bitcoin mining pool and then earn some Bitcoin slowly while you do other things. So that's one reason why I kind of like Bitcoin a lot, because of there's no such thing as a foundation. Everything is all really truly run by the community, by different companies. Is the true decentralization of blockchain itself. That I said earlier, I'm in it for decentralization tech, and Bitcoin is a true tech of this decentralization. And a lot of people kind of forget that they talk about Ethereum is the king of DeFi, right? It's the first ever concept of how it revolutionized DeFi. But they forgot that Bitcoin is the first DeFi that ever built in the entire space. Because Bitcoin, what is Bitcoin core value, right? Satoshi wants people to use Bitcoin to be able to send from one party to another party, and without having a middleman. Isn't that DeFi itself, right? So from there, you really understand and appreciate Bitcoin. And on top of that, a lot of people, like what Morbid said, like people keep shitting on Bitcoin. There's nothing to do. It's just a strawberry asset, which is bullshit. Nowadays, look, we have different opcodes that were dug out, right? You have opcat that might come or might not, hopefully it comes. But we have time locks on Bitcoin, which people thought it was impossible because of underscore CLTV, right? So these are kind of things make Bitcoin much more programmable than what people think that Bitcoin can do. And because of such things, more and more people are trying to build things on top of Bitcoin to make sure Bitcoin L1 is secure, as at the same time having L2s to supplement applications being built on Bitcoin, as long as the whole envelope happens and then push back to Bitcoin L1. I believe that's what you guys are doing as well. Shout out for you guys trying to do something good on Bitcoin as well. So that is why I love Bitcoin and why I want to build on Bitcoin and grow Bitcoin and be in Bitcoin forever. Because Bitcoin is forever. As long as one day there's a nuclear war, shit happens, shit goes south, I want to open back a node, open back the Bitcoin mine and having it, and Bitcoin will run again. So it's there forever. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so this aspect of that I feel like you're touching on is the concept that, building on Bitcoin, using Bitcoin, leveraging the tech itself, in part is because you're wanting to inherit some aspects that it gives you inherently, whether it's security or decentralization, this open permissionless aspect of originally it was just transacting, but I think that, and what I'm kind of getting to in the question I want to pose back to you, like along those lines, is this, directly related to what got you interested in building in the ecosystem, like Ordzar, your involvement with Ordzar, now like leaving a legacy in the art space and culture space, is this aspect of openness, permissionless combined with the tech that we want to create. This seems like the biggest value add. Are we, is that the lines that you're kind of like feeling on from a philosophy standpoint, and why you're, building in the space, betting on the tech, and sticking around?
Philosophy wise, I would say,
Because
yes,
like we know that
sorry, go ahead.
it's been a long, hard road, and, like a lot of struggle
Yeah.
to be involved in building on Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, it's not easy building on Bitcoin. I want to tell straight up that Bitcoin is one of the hardest chain to build on. If you used to, like, you're so used to smart contracts, you're so used to a lot of libraries, SDKs there are in Ethereum, right? On Bitcoin, I remember back in 2023, there was nothing you can build, you can take from and use it, right? So you have to build a lot of things from scratch, right? And trust me, it was a big issue. Like Ordinals was new, right? There wasn't much update happening. Um, and we have to try to build things around it. And Ordinals itself, the node wasn't really fast enough for fast transaction or like people to be able to trade, right? That's why for Odza back in the day, we built a launch pad. We try build our own infra. Everything was just done on a base level. And as owners grew, more update comes out. We update, we build more things. And in terms of philosophical side of things, why Bitcoin in terms of culture, right? I'm very passionate about my own culture. I'm from Singapore, but my subculture, my heritage is from the Nusantara kind of thing, which are in the Southeast Asia, like Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, and all this. We have a Nusantara culture. And I think back in 2023, I worked with a Bali government to kind of do a crossover between their kind of Javanese art concept to and have it on chain. And it did really, really well. And I always wanted to do more of this such thing, right? But it's never easy because end of the day, like my goal is to get as much as my own historical culture on chain so that the culture can never be destroyed. Because I'm 37 years old and I respect my culture a lot, the heritage of it, the history of it. Sadly, the younger generations, they don't really give a shit, right? And sooner or later, if we there's no preservation of our own culture, things might just get lost, and there's no proper provenance to kind of safeguard this culture, this heritage, and then it will be lost forever. So at least if I were to kind of work with government bodies and stuff and get all these historical assets, cultural assets on chain on Bitcoin, there is a form of governance to it as well. Sorry, provenance to it as well. And then in the future, I can at least tell people because I'm very heavily involved in my own community as well. When I talk about history, about art, about our own cultural art, which is pretty dope. And sadly there's not many young people that are interested, but slowly, hopefully, it grows. So that's why I choose Bitcoin because the beauty of Bitcoin is having once you have it on chain, it's done, right? If you do in Ethereum or in Solana, via IPFS, if you don't like pay IPFS, whatever, the image just go away, right? Like how how many NFTs all of you guys have in your MetaMask that does not have any image at all? I bet you it's a lot. I have 90% of my NFTs in MetaMask have zero image. There's none. And that's why I choose to be Bitcoin. Once you have things on chain, is there forever, and you don't even need to pay any maintenance fee at all. So yeah.
Yeah, this concept of working to preserve culture, it almost sounded like you're referring to some future plans. Is that what are you talking about some plans you have in the future, some work that you're gonna do in this like area? It's almost what it
Uh
second, so sorry if I
all I can say is I am in talks with a certain organization that and most probably they are willing to fund to get the culture art on chain and everything. So and they love the idea of sharing this art out to people for free as well. And they saw what I did, they love it, and they want to do the same thing. So that might be something I will work on in the future on the culture and outside of things.
Yeah, sounds cool. Sounds like alpha. So we'll be following along, I'm sure, and everybody listening in here, see when that might come back in the future. Um, well, cool. I think it's, obviously a really cool project. I like all of the concept behind it and the way that released and the airdrop and everything. It's all, super interesting. And I feel like fits in with, like I mentioned earlier, the heart behind it, and you introduced with, leaving a legacy, putting like leaving your mark, putting your culture and sharing it as that, extension and ultimate expression, and using the canvas in that way, I find, really cool. So appreciate you talking about Kyogen. I am curious a little bit about Ordzar, and we don't have to go too long here, but we've got a little bit more time from when we normally go. Usually we go for about an hour. We've been, we're close to 40 minutes in here, so we got a little more time. I am curious what's your involvement with Ordzar at this point? I know they did announce recently the relaunch of the platform, and there's some like news and updates. So I'm curious if you could share, what's your perspective on Ordzar?
Yeah, I mean, Oza has always been my baby, right? Like a fun project that meant to be permissionless, have people do fun stuff on Ordinals to grow the space. And moving forward, we were restricted on the tech side of things. And I decided to make a bold move and I talked to Snoop and I told Snoop, hey, you are one of the best builders in space. Is there something that you can help me with? And that's when we discussed back and forth, and I said that is the right guy to kind of helm the new Odza V2. I'm still very much involved in Odza, but mainly on the business side of things. But Snoop, Troy, Mr. BRC20, Havebringer, Blutoshi, and all this, they are the one that right now really piloting and championing Odza V2. Because these guys, they saw how Odza grew and how Odza impacted the space. And yes, there are a couple of issues, right? But hey, every single launchpad have issues as well. But they built something from scratch with new tech, with new odd upgrades, with new form of Bitcoin understanding that I was lacking back then. As you know, I was new in the Bitcoin space. But now with all these amazing people, especially Greg knowledge on Bitcoin is insane. And how they've been helping Oza grow right now, I will tell you is the tech stack itself is worth crazy amount of money. And they did it, they push it out, and I'm very bullish on Oza V2 because if you see how the first launch happened, it was smooth sailing. I wouldn't say smooth sailing. There was issue with Xverse wallet connectivity, but we fixed that. We worked with Xverse team to fix that. But other than that, it went smooth sailing. It was the tech stack is pretty cool, and there's more to come, right? For Odza, pretty sure there's Elkin's gonna come in Odza, probably BRC 2.0, I guess. I don't know. This is all up to them, because they are the one that making decisions. I'm helping on the business side of things, on the marketing side of things, talking to collections, helping them. But I do still have some stake left in the company. So yeah, that is what Oza is all about. And when it comes to the future Oza, I would say you guys will be amazed of what's to come. That's all. That's all. It's the plans that they have, the things that they want to do with it. Is pretty sick.
Yeah, that's really cool. Obviously all those guys you mentioned that are joined that team are, great. I had a conversation with Snoop Toshi a couple days ago, and it's super exciting to see everything pushing forward. And I love it. Anytime there's like more development, more like different experiences for the different sectors of the Bitcoin DeFi space, like from we've been talking a lot about like the collector side of things, but there's also like all of the other aspects of building, around ordinals, from like launch pads and marketplaces. And I think that, what's going to be interesting is to see how this, particular group, because it is like a group coming together that has had a lot of different experiences and different background already building in different projects in the space with their involvement. So I think it'll be interesting to see how this like direction goes in terms of like new experience in the culture and collecting and launching ordinals, and the community around it. So super exciting and bullish, I think. We've got a little bit more time. If anybody in the audience wants to come up, if you've got a last minute question for Naqib or another topic, I was going to zoom out with kind of like a final topic around, just Ordinal's ecosystem in general, and pose a question to you guys up here for us to wrap up here in the next, several minutes. But if anybody wants to come up, last minute, you can click request. And if you have a question or something you want to wrap up with, then you're welcome to. But if not, then we'll probably just wrap things up here shortly. I was just gonna kind of generally pose the question. Jayuk, you just announced recently that you're getting involved with Arch, working on our team, focusing in the Korea space, and super exciting. Welcome to the team. It's gonna be great working with you going forward. Just kind of reintroducing you and a question that I kind of want to wrap up with, and this is for both of you, not just Jayuk. Like, what do you see as like the things that are most exciting? Like, what's top of mind as like exciting for the Bitcoin, DeFi space? Obviously, what we're building is top of mind at Arch, but I feel like everything is really exciting around the ecosystem. So I'm just curious, what comes to mind as like what's most bullish, what gets you excited about these next several weeks to months to couple years as we get down this Bitcoin DeFi ecosystem and growing it to what we all know and believe it will become.
I think recently these new developments in infrastructure and new applications and builders coming from other ecosystems is very interesting. And yeah, it's like just new energy coming back into the space. We can also find it in the charts, ordinals and runes and some other old coins like Ordi were also pumping. So we can definitely see some evidence of that. And also it's kind of it's kind of contradicting, but like um I think how people are still not discovering the Bitcoin space is much more bullish. Like, I don't know if that makes sense, but uh I think once people find out what's going on here, it's going to be explosive. And I think we are just right around the corner of to discover what will be possible on Bitcoin. And yeah, I think we've said this a million times, but we're very early here. And that's what makes me bullish actually. The evidence of absence actually.
Yeah, for sure. And we we've been saying that for years at this point, and that's just talking about the ordinal space and this whole resurgence of what does it look like to do what we've grown to understand DeFi to really mean, not just the peer-to-peer cash that Bitcoin started it out as, but the all of the aspects like you're talking about attaching that capital to the performant apps and experiences that we've grown used to through our upbringing in web 2 or like on ramping to the age of the internet, depending on like whatever like age group you fall into. But we're all at this point where our day-to-day experiences are fueled by apps and everything, and that encompasses everything that we do from a cultural standpoint, food, travel, uh, investing, short-term, long-term solutions around, money, and finances. So for all of that to be like coming together in this singular final form is kind of how you can conceptualize it. This whole ecosystem of applications is super exciting and bullish. And I with Caleb, I was on a space a couple days ago, and recently we've been talking about this whole aspect of Arch being, representing more of the concept of like going to the App Store and downloading whatever solution based app like that you're going to use and connecting with your Bitcoin wallet. So connecting back to Bitcoin ultimately. We start that with that sound at the beginning of this space, Bitcoin Builders every week. That from our recent launch video, talking about, building on Bitcoin, and we talk about that constantly. But I think that it kind of like fades into the background a little bit too much. And there's some things that have been like brewing up from, behind the scenes, as far as like what are the types of experiences that people can have very soon just using their Bitcoin wallet, and removing friction from the user experience because of this whole resurgence of development on Bitcoin that you mentioned. One thing that I notice is like in our ecosystem, the developers are really, really tight knit to the point that they know about one another's projects, know what's going on, are helping each other with solutions. So if you're, like if you're a developer or work with a team that is looking to get into, the Bitcoin space, then working in the Arch ecosystem is something that everyone needs to be looking into. So yeah, I'm super bullish on everything. Obviously been with Arch for a long time, and am, your resident Arch bull. So but thanks everybody for joining us. I think we'll probably wrap things up here. I don't have any requests to join the stage, so we'll probably wrap up the interview with Naqib and conversation about ordinals and Kyogen and his project that he just launched here recently. If you didn't get one, you can go check it out. It's really cool art. If you like to collect, you can go collect. So thanks again for everybody joining us. I've got a little outro sound that I'll play here, and we will be back next week. Usually this week we started a little early at 1 o'clock, but usually we're at 1:30 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesdays. So Bitcoin Builders will be back next week, and we'll see you then.